Try.
Yeah.
Ought to. Not which, ought.
A few years ago, my parents were still alive, and S and I were traveling to Canada pretty much every winter and every summer vacation. The winters were particularly severe. Canada has cold winters. But it would be nice. We'd arrive at Toronto, Pearson Airport, and first stay with my dad for a while. My dad seemed to be holding up fairly well. He had his daily rituals that occupied him, that kept him happy. My mother was already in hospitalization, but she seemed cheerful too. In any case, while I was there, and during the time that I spent in Toronto, where I lived for almost 20 years, and then the time that I spent in Ottawa, where I also grew up until I was 20, I had a lot of time to reflect on the past, on memories that I had of being a kid and young adult, and also trying to understand what had happened in our family specifically, and what it meant to basically be an artist who tries to make sense of being alive. Now, in my brother's case, he was enormously gifted, and this was something that everybody in the family recognized from the time he was a little child. But he was passionate, and that ultimately caught up with him. He had a lot of trouble getting along with my dad. The two of them never really bonded. I think that was a source of pain for them both. I know that it haunted my dad later. When my brother was dying, he made some final attempts to try to reconcile with my dad as much as he was capable of. He remained very, very close to my mom, who was making appalling decisions in terms of his care. She was basically enabling his drinking. After my brother passed away, my aunt Annika, this is my mom's youngest sister, came to visit, and she also tried to patch things up with my mom. But my mom was, who had always been sort of remote on a certain level, wasn't really that interested in patching things up with her younger sister. She remained obsessed with my brother. In some ways, her apartment was a kind of gallery space for artwork by myself and Richard. And I also got a lot of pleasure from looking at these paintings, these neo-expressionist paintings that my brother did when he was in his 20s and still at art school, or these drawings that he did, these very imaginative drawings that he did when he was a kid. My mother in particular seemed obsessed with my brother as a child. It was really remarkable to witness. It was almost as if she'd blanked out certain periods of his adult life, and had a kind of reverse focus, so that the farther things were away in terms of the family history, the more she wanted to concentrate on them. She was absolutely besotted with my brother and her sense of his budding talent. The talent was definitely there, but in the end, my brother published practically nothing, just a very small chapbook, and it was up to me basically to sort of protect and keep his work from falling into complete oblivion. He printed out page after page of highly original poetry, but he wouldn't paginate anything. I just ended up finding, after he passed away, these pages of random poetry that were written in a sort of prose style and that were very hard to organize. I still haven't completely finished organizing them, and I'm not sure that the job is possible. In any case, by the time he was sick because of his drinking, he'd given up on making art. I had tried to make it as an artist when I was young. I did a series of drawings of working people that incidentally my brother liked quite a bit. And also incidentally, I was quite pleased that he was impressed by those drawings. Later, both he and I became more interested in neo-expressionist work. We still did representative work. This is a portrait that I did from memory of my brother, just in a notebook. I did illustration work for a variety of magazines. My brother became more and more interested in just walking around and writing poetry, which was sort of prose poetical. He was very interested in the poor people of Montreal where he lived. He was interested in indigenous people. He was interested in the very marginalized, the people who were shoved out onto the street, the people who were too poor to even get it together, to get on welfare, that kind of thing. And I think that one reason he was so fascinated by those people was he thought this was his future destiny. It may have been on a certain level that he started drinking very heavily because he was so terrified of his own future. In any case, going back to childhood, my parents were interesting people. They were both very intellectually inclined. They were both against the war in Vietnam. They were against nuclear weapons. I think time has proven that their concerns were correct, but they had a lot of difficulty maintaining a happy relationship, and that really, really had an impact on my brother and me. The way in which idealistic parents who are very clever on an intellectual level and have a lot of trouble getting it together on an emotional level is a story that a lot of artists have told, because I think a lot of artists come from that kind of family background. But at the same time, interestingly, I think that this kind of experience needs to be foregrounded more in, for example, Canadian literature, because what's happened with identitarianism, a focus on the identity of the author, is that we've moved away from a kind of psychoanalytic understanding of what makes an artist into sort of an understanding according to racial and gender lines. Those lines are fine. They have a place, but the reality is we all come from families. And if we're artistically inclined and we come from sort of mixed up, emotionally complicated families, that's something that we all have to deal with. It's not as if just people in group X suffer and people in group Y don't. It's the complexity and the pain of coming from dysfunctional families is more widespread than just racial or gender identity. In any case, near the end, what happened was my parents started to realize they were weakening physically. What my dad said is that the body breaks down. My mother was in complete denial about weakening. I mean, she'd get on the phone after she'd been hospitalized for over a year and tell me that she went out shopping. It was sort of touching and absurd at the same time. But in any case, when parents weaken and die, one also thinks a great deal about one's own past. The two things go together.